Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Super excited you're here. So as we continue real estate investing and looking at different strategies, I kind of stopped and thought about, well, wait a minute. What if you are wanting to be a real estate investor? And I'll get asked questions all the time, like, how do I start doing Airbnbs? How do I start doing flips? Where do I find deals? But you know what? Even before you get to that point, there are certain skill sets that you need. And so I wanted to do a video on those because we don't really talk about this. But I was on a podcast this morning and I was like, you know what? You have to have good certain skills to be a successful real estate investor. Now, I'm not saying you have to have these completely developed, but it's things to think about and work on. So without further ado, go with me as I share my screen and we're going to get right to it this morning. So let's see. You know me, I always say this in her full screen. You know, Nancy, she's always like, okay. So I call this presentation Skills to Develop If You Want to Be a Real Estate Investor. Now, what I'm saying here is what, in my experience, what I've found is that you do need these skills, and the better you hone these skills, the better real estate investor you're going to be. So what kind of skills am I talking about? Am I talking about being a carpenter or a tile layer or a marketer? And no, I am not talking about any of those. I'm talking about, number one, education. Obviously, you have to be education, have the knowledge to be a real estate investor. Otherwise, you're going to be spinning your wheels, spending too much money. You won't know how to analyze a deal. You need to know how to do repair estimates. And you also need to know about changes in the market, how to read that. When changes happen, what should you do? Like if you are a flipper and now all of a sudden the market has turned and it's really hard to find deals and that was your only way of real estate investing, then how are you going to take advantage of, let's say right now is a great Airbnb market, right? Owner financing, buy and hold, rentals. So having the education knowledge to really kind of look at how to save yourself money, analyzing a deal because you don't want to be paying over. And number two, repair estimates if you're buying a distressed property, or even if you're not. If you're buying, I've bought properties off the MLS that still needed repairs, and that all becomes, I need to know, well, I can get a plumber out, I can get an electrician out, but I need to have some kind of idea of what that repair is going to cost me. Now, where do you find all that stuff? Well, there's a ton of stuff online. Like I'm doing this video, I've done several videos about finding stuff, how to invest with your self-directed IRA, how to start an Airbnb, how to screen tenants. So there's tons of stuff online. I would recommend that you just kind of focus on one topic and kind of get to know that instead of trying to learn everything. And there's great books on real estate investing, examples that people have done. One of my I'm going to give you two top ones that I like. Of course, Winning Deals and Heels is one of my books. And let me ask you this, but also one of my Bibles, if you will, when I became a real estate investor was Gary Keller's The Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I mean, it's pretty much laid out if you're looking to do buy and holds. I mean, it's, it was written many years ago, but I still follow that formula when I buy rentals. So check that one out. And then I love Ken Corsini. He wrote a book called Profit Like the Pros. I do happen to be chapter 12 in that. But you know what? There's 24 other really awesome real estate investors who all do different things and they have different ways that they did it. So that's a good, I learned some things just by, reading some of the other investors. Of course, there's networking. Networking is a great way to get education, get knowledge. There's so many free networking events, both online and in person. So, take advantage. There's seminars that you can take. So there's a wealth of knowledge out there. There's people that will mentor you. You can partner with. We've actually worked with people where they have a deal they don't know what to do with, and so we partnered with them. So we brought the experience, they brought the deal, we worked it all out. Everybody made money, and then of course there's always paid training, paying someone to kind of guide you and show you the step by steps to kind of hold your hand and, more importantly, hold you accountable for the actions and lack of actions that you're doing it with your real estate business. So there's always a place and time for a paid coach. I've paid for them. I've had multiple coaches throughout my career, because you know what? There's only so much reading and online learning can do for you. And you have to finally get in there and work with somebody who will actually show you the step-by-step and how-tos. So here's a word of caution on, hiring gurus and coaches. And I think it's great. And I totally support that. But do your vetting and make sure that person that you're paying is going to, what do they offer? How often do you talk with them? So you'll just want to make sure that it's, compatible with where you're at with your real estate business, whether you're starting out or you need to go to the next level. So I've had them when I started out, I've had them to get to the next level, and it's all worked out really well. Now let's talk about communication skills. Now I could have written a whole article, and maybe I will, about just communicating, because if you don't have good communication skills, now I'm talking of, I'm not talking about conversational, I'm talking about knowing the type of conversation you need to have, communication, and how you're going to communicate that. I can't even say the word. So communication skills doesn't just have to do with verbally. It's also writing, writing emails, writing contracts, the verbiage that you put in. So, a lot of us talk with sellers and buyers. So that's kind of a given that you need to have good skills, good negotiating skills, really with any group of these people. If you're in property management, or you are, have to deal with landlords and owners, you have to have good communication skills. Contractors, if you've been in real estate even a nanosecond, you probably know that you've got to have really good skills. And I will put a little caveat: documentation with contractors. Lenders, you have to communicate. Not all lenders are the same. In my book, Let Me Ask You This, I talk about how lenders, not all lenders are the same, because when you go to get a note or a mortgage for your investment property, I have had lenders tell me they're an investment, they do investment lending, but it turns out they don't, and they try to qualify me for a conventional mortgage on a real estate investment, and it's just not going to fly. I'm a 1099 person, and I've just, I'm not going to qualify for conventional or traditional lending. So you have to be able to communicate what it is that you're really trying to do. Partners, this is a good one. You might have the best bud, and you go in together 50-50 on a project, on, let's say, rehabbing a house, and they have one way of thinking about how it should be done, and you have another, and you didn't communicate that up front. And guess what? Down the road, that's going to cost you some money, some time, and possibly your friendship. So just be cognizant when you're working with your friends, and you're, what I call, always put in place a joint venture agreement, and it spells out exactly what and who is responsible. So, and the timelines and everything. So that's part of that communication skills. And then when it comes to presenting, so there will be times, a few years ago, I had a deal that just was like a home run. It was very interesting the way I got the deal, and people asked me to talk about it all the time. And I was like, great. And in fact, in Ken's book, that deal is in there in chapter 12. So, I had to develop my presentation skills, not only just, and on video, like I'm doing today. Am I the best at it? No, I still need to work at it, but it doesn't stop me from learning and continuing to increase my communication skills. And in presenting, the idea is to present clearly so that the audience knows what you're talking about. So one great way to develop your communication skills is just to listen more. Be quiet and listen. Now, I'm the first to say that I'm a little bit, this is probably one area that I struggle in. I need to listen more. Sometimes when we've been doing it for a long time, we just think we have all the answers. So no, especially when you're mentoring and coaching people, you need to hear what they have to say, hear so that you can articulate and give them good feedback on the direction that on the direction the person's going. And then knowing your audience, this is so important. the reason I bring this up is that when you are a real estate investor, you talk to a plethora of people. Is that not true? You talk to sellers and buyers and contractors, and you're in networking, and so you're going to have a different facade, a different way of communicating when you're in those different groups. So for example, a seller that's a distressed seller that's going through a really hard time and you're trying to purchase their home, you're going to have a more empathetic way of communicating with that seller, hopefully, right? If you have a contractor that's not performing, you're probably going to be a little bit more direct and stern. Now, I do want to say here about communication. It's, again, it's not just about the verbal, it's also about the written. So, kind of take heed when you write emails. And when I get a text message and it's all in caps, I'm like, oh, wait, don't be yelling at me. And it might just be that the person that's what they do to read it better, right? So, and speaking of writing, so you want to write out. So for example, if you're going to a house and it's your first time to meet with a seller or maybe a contractor you feel a little intimidated about, write it out. I'm not saying write out the whole speech. What I'm saying is make notes, because you don't want to forget the high points. Like, what is it that you want to communicate? So just write it out and then refer to your notes. And then ask for feedback. And I say do this from a trusted source. So do not go on Facebook and ask people, well, give me some feedback about my communication skills, because could be good, could be bad. So it just depends on what day of the week is, right? So for example, when I'm doing presentations, or even, putting myself out there on YouTube, I get feedback about what I can do, if people like it. Sometimes no feedback is also, an indicator. But when I do presentations, I always ask the person who organized it, hey, can you give me some feedback? And that's so that, none of us like to hear bad things or be criticized, but I look at it as, well, what can I do to improve? How can I if I'm speaking to an audience, how can I engage with that audience? How can I make sure that my message that I'm there to talk to about is not confusing, that it's clear, I have clarity when I present? Sometimes a good thing to do is just record yourself and listen to your, the way you speak, how you come off and that kind of thing. And then body language, there used to be all kinds of courses, and maybe there still are out there online, about body language. Like, it used to be kind of a big thing in business. Like, as a presenter, you would, there were certain ways that you would stand to kind of engage the audience. If somebody crosses their arm, it usually means that they've kind of shut you off. Of course, eye contact is so important. And so if you're someone that's a little bit introverted, you might have to work on that. And that's all part of developing that communication skill. So let's talk about patience. Okay, I struggle with this one big time, in a lot of areas of my life. I'm one of those people that I just want to hurry up and get it done, hurry up and get it done. But, in real estate investing, it's really important to develop patience, not so much for bad contractors or, situations that, you have no control over, contractors, but really what this is about is having the patience to follow the process, to do your due diligence. So when I had my property management company, and I still hear this a lot, when a landlord has a property vacant, that's costing money day in, day out. Or if you have an Airbnb business, and it's not full, that's costing you money every day. So that can kind of make us feel anxious and like, okay, well, I need to get somebody in there to pay me, right? So that's when you have the problem guests. That's when you have the problem tenants. You need to take the time to still do the due diligence. On properties, I've met people who, they bought a property, they asked me to come in and kind of analyze it after they've purchased it. And when I asked them, why, and this happens a lot, especially with new investors. And when I asked them, well, what was it about this property? Like, I don't want to say, why did you buy this property, right? But I asked them, well, what was it about this property? What were the numbers? And you know what? I have been told this time and time again. I just wanted to get into the game. Okay, real estate is not a game. And I see it as a, yes, I want to be in, I want to be doing real estate deals, but don't be in such a hurry that you overpay for a property. Don't be in such a hurry to fill that vacancy and, cut corners and take a tenant who, might not take care of your property. So look at other avenues as, well, maybe you need to lower the rent, or, another big one I see a lot on Facebook too is about marketing. So, it takes time. If you're doing any kind of marketing for distressed sellers, it takes time, unless, it just takes time. It takes time for people to, depending on the type of marketing. So I've done cold call marketing, I've done direct marketing, I've done driving for dollars, I've done, referrals. I love referrals because they're a warm lead. But marketing, if you're doing direct mail, it takes time and you need to give it time. And I have literally gotten a deal from a postcard that I sent out a year ago, right? The seller kept it. So just give your marketing time. Now, after amount of time, you're spending money, you're not seeing any results, then you need to change it up, right? But give your marketing some time. And typically in direct marketing, it takes anywhere from 6 to 8 touches for you to see any kind of results. So I'm just going to give you a little story about, I really like doing pre-probates. These are leads that have not, someone's recently deceased, usually like when I get the list, they literally just passed away last week. So, and in the beginning, I cold called them and I sent them a letter. What did I know, right? So that was not a good marketing strategy. So I quickly learned that I was calling and sending letters way too quickly. So I waited about 4 to 5 weeks before I sent the initial card. So yes, the person was still sad, but that it felt very invasive. That's probably where I've had my people calling me the worst names ever. When I called people, imagine I just called you up and your mother just passed away last week and I'm calling about your house. Yeah, not a good plan. So, but anyway, I could have just given up and said, okay, but I let the marketing do its job when I figured it out and I had patience. Now, if I was trying to make a deal like in a week, that wasn't going to happen with that type of marketing. Another thing I see is people like the afraid of, what I say is like, if you don't have patience, you're going to over promise and under deliver when it should be the other way around. So you don't want to over promise and you do want to over deliver, but don't over promise something that you can't, make happen. Like you're going to buy this property or with your private money lenders or whoever it is. Making sure you're doing your due diligence. And then, of course, don't be in a rush to fill a vacancy. You just don't have to have that. You can have that feeling that you want to get in the game, but make sure that you're being smart about it and you're still doing your due diligence. Now, your vision, right? Vision. So this is as personal as you want to be. But there's two things here. You want to have a personal vision for yourself as a business person. My business vision and personal vision kind of go hand in hand. My business vision is to be, support my personal vision, right? But some of the things you should ask yourself is, why are you an investor? Do you enjoy it? Like, I'm so passionate about real estate investing. I could talk about it 24/7. I drive my family crazy because they don't talk about it like I do. And then what is the outcome that you're looking for? So, it depends on your overall vision. But I meet a lot of people that want to get into wholesaling because they don't have the cash or don't know the creative financing resources that there are out there that they could be buying properties, right? So they want to wholesale. So right now in this market that I'm in, it's really difficult to be a wholesaler and be successful. So you could be discouraged and give up. Why are you an investor? There's lots of reasons why people become real estate investors, from people who just love HGTV, which I do too. Once you find out the reality, that's not anything like real estate investing. But I like it because of the freedom that it gives me, not just financially, but also the time. I love that I can spend my time, doing marketing or making this video or going out to see properties. I love that, it's probably the only role that I've ever had that I'm completely over my own destiny every day. Now, when we talk about vision, I always talk about, like let's talk real estate business. So, you may have a vision that you want, 50 to 100 Airbnbs. And that's all great. But if you put all your pennies in one bucket, so to speak, what happens when that market turns? Because it will turn, right? So I always tell people and teach people have more than one exit strategy. No matter what property I buy, I always make sure that if it can be an Airbnb, it can also be a rental. If it can't be a rental, it can be an Airbnb. If it can't be, or it could be I could sell it retail, depending on the market. I could own or finance it. So just have more than one exit strategy on each property, and then invest strategically. Now, this all comes down to personal choices and personal ways that you want to invest. So, for example, for me, I don't invest outside of Texas. It's not that I couldn't. I just feel like from a time standpoint, my time is better spent with investment properties here in Texas. Now, it doesn't mean later on I won't buy in other states, and I'm getting closer there, but it has to be an area that makes sense for me. I'm not really one to buy just an Airbnb and in an area that's very hot, because if that market changes and I know it's saturated with Airbnbs, I'm not sure what my exit strategy was going to be. When I'm talking about my vision, and I suggest you do this too, I write it down. And you know what? Your vision will change over the years. It may change in the same year. We all kind of had to make a shift when we went through the pandemic. So the vision that you had, I had a vision that I was going to be out on stage and, hawking the wares and all of that. And of course, that all changed with the pandemic. And then share your vision with a trusted person. Now, if you just share it with just anybody, there's some haters out there that, because I believe, and I have this at the bottom, dream big. And I believe in big dreams, because even if you don't achieve them, you can dream it. And the more you dream, the bigger your goals. And then you can work it backwards and come up with those daily routines that get you to that big dream. So when you share dreams like that, and it could be with, family or whatever, and they don't quite understand your vision or your dream, you might not get the feedback that you're expecting. And one of the things that I think is very disheartening for people is they have just this great vision of how they want to see their life, be it financial freedom, being that you can quit the 9 to 5 job where they leave a legacy for their children, whatever it is. And then someone says, you know what, you're not going to be able to do that. That kind of negative feedback that none of us want to hear or need to hear. So when you share your vision, do it with a trusted person. And you know what? Don't try and keep up. So you're on your own path. So I'm not a multifamily investor. I've had opportunities to be, but for a multitude of reasons, I've stuck to single family. That I'm good at it. That's what I like. Now, doesn't mean, sometime I won't become a passive investor or, buy a building or something like that. But right now, that's not what I'm into. I really like having the freedom of choosing the type of investments I like to invest in. And right now, that's just not one of them. And then, like I said before, your vision of business can really complement your personal vision, or maybe you have a personal vision and you have a separate business vision, but somehow they always get married together to support one another. And like I said, don't forget to dream big. Now let's talk about efficiency. So the last two were kind of like, okay, personal, how we approach things, but efficiency in real estate investing, you have got to be. And efficiency is one of those things like, because it'll cost you money if you're not efficient, right? It will cost you not getting a deal because you weren't efficient in your marketing. Efficiency equals loss of income if you're not efficient, or I should say lack of efficiency. So let's talk about how you can become more efficient. Now, I can relate to this one because I feel like I'm an efficient person, but I am a control person. And so it was really hard for me to delegate. And in general. So if you're working on a flip, I'm going to give you a little example of my husband and I. So we each have a certain strong set of skill sets. So he's much more techno than I am. I'm more the people, talking to the contractors and everything, but he's more the detail guy. So the way we work is that I will, find the right contractor, get the price, we'll talk about it, we'll hire the person, but then my husband is the one who oversees and makes sure the work is done right. That's where our strengths are. Have a clear outcome of your goals. So whatever kind of project it is, if it's a wholesale, if it's flip, it's buy and hold, you have a goal, right? We talked about vision before. So usually to fulfill a vision, you need one and multiple goals to get there. And always focus on important tasks. So I'll get asked this. So I believe in outsourcing because you have to look at if you can pay a VA, $8 to $10. For my marketing, I hire a gal that lives in my neighborhood, and I pay her $10 an hour to write cards because that's what I send out. I do handwritten cards to my list. And you know what? I could say, well, I could do that. No, I could do it. Yes. But what is my time worth? Right? I think my time's worth more than $10 an hour. I have someone come and clean my house. Why? Because my time is worth more. So look at what is important task and then back it down. Now, some people will say, well, Nancy, I don't have the money for that. Well, you know what? What does it cost you not to outsource? What does it cost if you have people, you're doing the smaller tasks and then the most important tasks don't get done, or they take longer to get done, which you're not being very efficient. And then minimize distractions. So recently I learned about how to put snooze on. I was doing a video on my phone and the phone was ringing off the hook or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. So minimize distractions. And I actually started using this personally as, I will give myself 3 hours every day and I just turn my phone off. Why? Because I'm writing, I'm creating, and it's distracting when someone calls me. Same with my emails. I try to do my emails just a couple times a day. I'm an early gal. I get up in the morning, and so I check all of my emails first thing. I mean, if you get an email from me at 3 and 4 a.m., I try not to send them out too early because people think I'm weird that way. But, it makes me more efficient. And a lot of times I've gotten in a full day's work before noon. So that's how I've worked. That's the skill that I've developed. And I didn't put organization in here, but if you're organized or can get organized, that will help you be more efficient. And then break your task into smaller pieces. So this is really true for marketing, for looking at repairs on a property, for analyzing properties, especially if you're looking for properties on, let's say you're just trying to do a search for properties. So really breaking what those tasks down can make you more efficient. And the last one I'm going to talk about is accountability, because I don't think we talk about this enough in real estate investing. So being accountable and having accountability, I see as two different things. So being accountable means that if I borrow money from my private money lender, I'm accountable for paying that money back. Now I have, the private money lender has a document that says that, but I am accountable, right? Honesty, this industry, real estate industry in general, just don't anybody get hating on me. But you know what? Let's be honest. Let's be transparent. Let's be genuine and authentic with our sellers, our buyers, and this goes across all industries, but honesty, right? And then you know what? If you screw up, you make a mistake, own up to it, own it, and apologize. I don't think we have enough people. I think our world would be just a much better place if we really made customer service and just, why did it take 3 hours to get my hamburger made? Because that irritates people, right? So apologizing for when you make a mistake, just own up to it. It doesn't make us feel good, but it makes us a better person. And then time. Are you accountable for your time? So I gave a couple examples of like marketing. So my gal, she's got great handwriting. It probably takes her less than time than it would take me to write those, because I would have to practice being neater and that kind of thing. So I want to be accountable for my time. If I say that I have, this big vision, this big dream, well, I have to make the time to make that happen. It's just not going to happen. A real estate investor does not just happen. It's work. It's time. There's a commitment to it. And that's my next category is commitment. You've got to make a commitment. If you want to do well in this industry, you have to have commitment. You have to be accountable for your commitments. Are things that you say to sellers. When you're purchasing a house and you put it under contract, you're committing, on paper to that seller. So, but if you have another agenda with, what you're going to do with that contract, then, you're kind of not being honest. So it kind of goes hand in hand. And then we have to reflect because that's how we all become better at what we do. Better real estate investors, better landlords, better private money lenders. We have to reflect on our own accountability. And when it comes down to it, you have to have an accountability routine. Like if you want to get from A to B to C, the only way you're going to do that is to hold yourself accountable for doing certain tasks every day, week, month, and then reflecting back on, okay, when I did ABC, did it get me closer to where my end goal was? What are you doing daily, weekly, and monthly to reach your goals? What action? So I love the phrase, I'm taking imperfect action. So I'm making this video. I had a couple of bloopers, but you know what? I made the video because I feel like this message is important. I feel that the message is important about if you want to be successful in real estate investing, there has to be accountability for yourself, for your time, that kind of thing. And then what follow-up do you practice? So remember that example of the card that I said went out a year ago? Well, what if I just said, well, I don't do that anymore or whatever? I wouldn't have said that, but it could be. But just the fact that a year later, I was going to see a property that the lady still had the postcard. I mean, quite frankly, I couldn't even remember the marketing campaign it came from because I was like, what? Because I had changed. So gotten a new computer. So what follow-up do you practice? I love the fact that I follow up with all the sellers that I've ever worked with. Just because you never know, they might have, a friend or family member that needs to sell a house. And really what I want to say here is, do you challenge yourself every day to be accountable? What are you doing to create an accountability routine? And do you challenge yourself to meet your goals? So as I said, I get up early and I actually make a list. I have these little notepads that I use. And I just jot down what I want to accomplish. And whatever I didn't get done that day, it moves on to the next. Now, this is not a long process. They're not long lists because I have a routine that I follow every day and I'm accountable to only myself. And I think one more thing about this topic is on accountability. When you are a solo entrepreneur, as I am, my staff consists of virtual assistants, right? And if you are listening and you resonate that with, give me a thumbs up here because no one is coming and giving me awards. No one is, hosting a banquet that I can go to say, celebrate my successes. I'm the only one and my family, right? And my close friends. But from day to day, my successes only I know about. And my husband, of course. So sometimes it gets down when you're the only one that's your cheerleader. So that's kind of my point there. And then, so if you are not accountable to your own self, how will you move forward?